are against, then to turn it around and say that these people are, against the Maccabean family. No, they're not against the Maccabean family. The scrolls are later than the Maccabean period. Not all the scrolls in the sense that some of the Enoch and some of Jubilees and some of the classical documents that they preserve there, but all the sectarian documents are later. 1st century BC, after the coming of the Romans and the Herodians. We'll get to that presently. So this is the big deal here. So, and here's another big thing, submitting to heathen rule. You can't submit to foreign rule. Now, I think in Deuteronomy it says, you shall not put a foreigner over you. That's part of the Mosaic Law. Rabbinic Judaism doesn't observe that. The Dead Sea Scrolls does observe that. Does observe that. In other words, they feel that, their arguments with the Pharisees, who are the progenitors of Rabbinic Judaism as we know it, not all the Rabbinic people were like that. Akiba and some of the others were obviously not like that, but a lot of the others were willing to live with foreign rule. The scrolls paid the price of not being willing to live with foreign rule because they were observing the law to the absolute letter. And they paid the price of observing the law to the absolute letter. I have a lot of people in the class from different backgrounds, so I'm trying to make it comprehensible with all the different backgrounds as we go along. So in the Temple Scroll of the Dead Sea Scrolls, that commandment from Deuteronomy is repeated. You shall not put a foreigner over you. Many people think that the so-called Temple Scroll from the Dead Sea Scrolls that was found after the Six-Day War in someone's garden in Bethlehem where the antiquities dealer had buried it, which is a huge document, something like 61 columns. Many people think that's a 6th book of the law because it is given with God, Yahweh, or whoever you want to call it, speaking in the first person. I said this, I said that, I said this, and so on and so forth. So many people consider that the scroll people thought of it as a 6th book of the law. It has materials about the temple and how the temple service was to be conducted, but that's not all it has. It's got a lot of other law things, including thou shalt not put a foreigner over you. And it also bans niece marriage, which Rabbinic Judaism accepts. So there are things in the Temple Scroll that are against Pharisaic Judaism. And that's the different kinds of Judaism we had in that period. So that could have been, the law of the scroll community and so on, put in the first person in the name of God. But this submitting to foreign rule, I submit, in the scrolls, we have a name that we all think it's the Pharisees. It's called the Seekers After Smooth Things. It's in several scroll documents, particularly the Nahum Pesher, commentary on the prophet Nahum. Seekers after smooth things. Now, in Rabbinic normative Judaism, halachot are legal traditions that are represented by the Talmudic presentation of what came after the Old Testament, including the Old Testament. Halachot, which is why Jews call the law of Moses halakha. Halakha is the normal word for Mosaic law with the additions of Rabbinic law. Halakha is really actually means, based on the word go, holek, to go, the going, the way. It's a kind of another word for way. Anyway, it's also legal traditions. To seek out new traditions based on rabbinic lines of transmission. So in the scrolls we have seekers after smooth things, halakot. In And most people think that's a play on what the Pharisee teachers were doing, building a fence around the Torah, as they call it, seeking halachot. They wouldn't honor this activity with the name halachot. They like to make a pun on it, calling it halakot, making the rough things smooth. One of the rough things that I think they made smooth was not putting a foreigner over you. This group would not agree to put a foreigner over you. So this group was bound to come in collision with the Roman Empire. I'm stupid or whatever, they were bound, they would never apply, cynically or otherwise, the most precious prophecy of the Jewish people, the Messianic prophecy, to the Roman destroyer of Jerusalem and the temple. Their tongue would stick to the roof of their mouth before they would do such a cynical activity. They would never do it. And that is the difference between halachot and halakot in their view. I'm not saying that they're right or wrong, I'm just saying these people are, you say, fanatics. They're not realists, not pragmatists. Yeah, no, they're not. They're living in some spaced out heavenly sort of universe. That's quite impressive, you see, and that we have their literature. So the point is that these seekers, I think that the seekers after halakot are not just Pharisaic party, in Judaism we'll get to who the Pharisees are, but also Pauline Christians. In my view, because Paul says he was a Pharisee of the Pharisees. He studied at the feet of Pharisees. He was a student of Gamaliel and so on and so forth. He sees himself as a Pharisee of the Pharisees. And I think that code is also attacking people like that as well. I can only call Paul because he's written the stuff, therefore we can identify him. And how many other people are so clearly, from the first century who have expressed themselves in as open a way. You say, what about some other people? Well, we just don't have a lot of writings that we can so clearly point to that. Okay, so I think that the points are not what rabbinic circles would call pilpul, little arguments about small legal detail. It's about big overarching points of the law. These are the things that are the halakot that they're talking about. Submission to foreign rule, foreign appointment of high priests, niece marriage, divorce. None of these things were recognized at Qumran, and they are recognized in Judaism as we know.